They laughed at her at the NATO airbase until the sirens screamed. At one of NATO's most secure airbases, laughter echoed through the command hangar. Not jokes, not camaraderie, but mockery. They laughed at her uniform. They laughed at her calm voice. They laughed because they thought she didn't belong there. What they didn't know was that within hours, those same men would be frozen in fear as sirens screamed across the dais, and she would be the only one who knew exactly what to do. Welcome to United War. Intro. The NATO airbase sat like a steel fortress, surrounded by concrete runways, radar towers, and armed patrols. It was a place where experience ruled, where senior pilots and commanders believed they had seen every possible threat. That morning, a new officer arrived. Flight Lieutenant Elena Kovacs walked across the tarmac with steady steps. Her posture was perfect, her expression unreadable. She wasn't loud, she wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that was exactly why they underestimated her. The mockery begins. Inside the briefing room, the atmosphere shifted. Veteran officers exchanged looks as Elena took her seat. One smirked, another whispered something under his breath. A senior squadron leader chuckled openly. "She's the analyst?" someone muttered. "Looks fresh out of training," another laughed. When Elena began to speak, calmly outlining irregular radar patterns she'd been tracking, the room barely listened. A few officers leaned back, arms crossed, amused. One interrupted her mid-sentence. "Relax, Lieutenant. We've handled bigger threats than blips on a screen." Laughter followed. Elena stopped speaking, but not because she had nothing to say. She stopped because she understood something they didn't. Silent observation. While they laughed, Elena watched. She noticed how relaxed they were, how procedures were being skipped, how warnings were being dismissed as routine noise. Her eyes returned to the radar data. The pattern was subtle, but deadly. It wasn't random, it was deliberate. This wasn't a drill, this wasn't an error, this was preparation. Elena requested permission to escalate the alert level. The response? Another laugh. The senior officer waved her off. "We don't panic the base over theories." Elena nodded respectfully and sat back down, but her hands quietly tightened into fists beneath the table. Ending cliffhanger. Minutes later, as jets roared overhead and the base returned to routine, one screen flickered, then another. Elena's gaze sharpened. She stood up, slowly, because she knew what was coming. And when the first siren began to scream across the NATO airbase, laughter vanished instantly.
The sirens howled across the NATO airbase. Sharp, relentless, impossible to ignore. Red warning lights flashed along the runways. Mechanics froze mid-step. Pilots stopped dead in their tracks. Conversations died instantly. Inside the command center, laughter vanished. What replaced it was confusion. What's going on? Is this a drill? Who triggered the alert? All eyes turned toward the control screens. And then, toward her. Flight Lieutenant Elena Kovacs was already moving. She crossed the room with urgency, her calm presence cutting through the rising panic. Her voice was firm, controlled, nothing like the uncertainty spreading around her. "Unidentified aerial signatures entering restricted airspace," she said. "Low altitude, stealth pattern, not random." The senior officers stared at the radar in disbelief. Those blips they had laughed at were now multiplying. Orders began flying, contradicting each other. One commander demanded immediate fighter launch. Another hesitated, unsure of the threat classification. A third questioned the radar reliability. Seconds were slipping away. Elena didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She pointed. "There," she said. "They're probing response time. If we scramble now, we expose the base. If we wait too long, and they breach air defense." Silence followed. For the first time, no one laughed. A technician suddenly spoke up. "Sir, she's right. The trajectory matches a coordinated test, possibly hostile." The room shifted. The same officers who dismissed her minutes earlier now leaned in, eyes wide, breathing shallow. Elena continued calmly. "They're not attacking yet. They're measuring us. This is the warning before the strike." Her words landed like a hammer, because everyone in that room understood what that meant. Outside, fighter jets were being prepped at record speed. Anti-air systems powered up. The base moved from routine to war-ready in seconds. The senior commander turned toward Elena. This is your analysis." She nodded once.
The command center vibrated with urgency. Screens filled with moving targets. Alarms pulsed in steady rhythm. Outside, engines roared as fighter jets warmed on the runway. Time was no longer a luxury. The senior commander turned to Elena Kovacs, not with doubt this time, but with expectation. "What do we do?" For a brief moment, the room fell completely silent. Elena stepped forward. Her voice was calm, precise, unshaken. "We don't chase them," she said. "We trap them." She explained quickly. Clean airspace lanes, delayed radar pings, controlled visibility. A countermove designed not to scare the intruders, but to confuse them. "They think we're slow. Let them believe that, for 2 more minutes." No one interrupted her. They followed. Suddenly, the radar changed. The unidentified aircraft shifted formation, tight, aggressive, unmistakable. "That's it," a technician whispered. "They've armed." This was no exercise, no test. This was the real thing. The base held its breath. Elena's eyes never left the screen. "Now," she said. Defensive systems activated in sequence, radar locked, jammers engaged, fighters launched, not in panic, but with precision. The intruding aircraft hesitated, then turned. One by one, they pulled back, retreating beyond NATO airspace. No missiles fired, no shots exchanged, just silence. The room erupted in stunned disbelief. Moments earlier, they had laughed at her presence. Now, they stared at her like they were seeing her for the first time. The senior officer slowly removed his headset. "You just prevented a full-scale incident," he said quietly. Elena said nothing. She didn't need to.
The sirens fell silent. What remained was a heavy, unfamiliar quiet, one that followed narrowly avoided disaster. Outside, jets returned to their hangars. Inside the command center, no one spoke. Screens showed clear airspace. The base was safe, and everyone knew why. The debrief began immediately. Senior NATO officials joined the room remotely. Data streams replayed the incident frame by frame. Every decision was analyzed. Again and again, the same conclusion emerged. The early detection, the delayed response, the perfectly timed countermeasure. All of it traced back to one officer, Flight Lieutenant Elena Kovacs, the same officer they had laughed at. The moment of acknowledgement. The senior commander stood. "For the record," he said, voice steady, "this base avoided escalation because Lieutenant Kovacs recognized a threat the rest of us dismissed. No excuses were offered. No laughter returned. Just respect." Elena stood at attention as formal recognition was issued. Not loudly, not dramatically, but officially. Quiet victory. Later, Elena walked alone along the runway as the sun dipped below the horizon. She didn't celebrate, she didn't boast, she didn't even smile. Because real professionals don't seek validation, they seek results. Behind her, conversations had changed. The jokes were gone. The arrogance had faded. What replaced it was awareness. Narrator. They laughed at her because she was quiet. They doubted her because she didn't demand attention. But when the sirens screamed and chaos threatened everything, it was her mind that saved the base.